Everyone knows what exercises you need to do to progress in the planche, but knowing the exercises isn't what's keeping you stuck, it's how you're applying them. This was me for years. I had all the exercises down, but I was training at 100% every single session. No structure, no submaximal work, and no respect for recovery. Just pushing hard every single time. Then I'd plateau for months, and I had no idea why. The moment I changed how I structured my week, when to push, when to stay submaximal, when to rest, everything shifted. That's when I unlocked my two-finger planche. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over exactly how I was able to progress in the planche and the system that I used that was able to get me to my dream skill, which was the two-finger planche. Because at the end of the day, like I said at the start of the video, everyone knows the exercises. That's not the problem. The problem is that you don't know how to apply it to your structure. And this is exactly what separates those who progress and those who stay stuck for months. So let's get started. So let's just briefly go over why exactly most people plateau when it comes to training the planche or even other skills in general within calisthenics. And the first main one is that you train at the same intensity every single session. And what I mean by this is that usually the easiest part is to be able to just push yourself at 100% every single training. Everyone's able to do that. You just give your max, you come out, and then you're just expecting this result. But as you do this, you realize that you're not actually gaining the results that you were imagining. So you see all these people on social media, you see them training hard, you see all their highlight clips, and they seem to be progressing just fine because they don't show everything else that comes behind it. They don't show the days where they're resting, where they're training less intensely. And you think that it's always 100% and your central nervous system can't actually take that. And it's the same in the opposite way. If you don't push yourself enough, so you're always training submaximally. So of course this word's being thrown out a lot in the calisthenics community and on social media. And personally, it is a training method that I use and that I teach my clients. But you need to use this effectively. You need to have days where you're training submaximally, and you have to have those days where you are pushing yourself at 100%, because at the end of the day, you need to progressively overload. So if you're always training underneath your actual limit, you're never actually going to reach the goal that you want to get to. So that's the first big mistake that is the reason why people plateau. And the second one is the no weekly structure. So what I mean by no weekly structure is that you just go into your trainings, you go into every day not really knowing exactly what you're doing. You're kind of going with the flow, if I can say that. There's no real planning behind it, because in calisthenics there's also this huge concept of intuition. The fact that you need to intuitively listen to your body before you actually go to your workout. But I like to rephrase this a different way. I like to go through programmed intuition. So you have a set program. So we'll go over it later in the video, what the sample of a week looks like. And then based off that program, then you can adapt it to your lifestyle, adapt it to how your body energy feels. And that's when the intuition comes in. So it's not only about intuition, because then you're just guessing, but you can't always just have everything perfectly structured and programmed, because then you no longer listen to your body and you no longer adapt your training to your lifestyle. So again, programmed intuition. So you're programmed and you're no longer guessing, so that you can make the best of both worlds and then make the progress that you want to see. Now, another big one is your CNS management. People, and especially myself, when I first started, I completely ignored my central nervous system. I just thought that the harder I pushed, the better results I saw. If I didn't feel it in my muscles, then I knew I wasn't pushing hard enough. But there's a whole neural side to this sport that's super important to actually take into consideration, and that's the nervous system. And this needs recovery. So that's why on days, for example, you hit a really good handstand or a really good planche in this example, because we're talking about the planche. And then the next day you might feel physically fine, but when you hit your set, it's not the same. You feel so much weaker, and you don't understand why, because you're not physically sore. And that's when your central nervous system is telling you, okay, you need to rest now, so that we can fully recover on a physical as well as neural level, so that you can feel good again. Because this feeling of heaviness, this sluggishness where you don't feel everything click and you're aligned like the previous day, that's when your central nervous system is telling you need to rest and recover that area. So again, that's why as well, on the intensity every session, 100%, you can't constantly expose yourself to maximum stress. So you need to have those days where you're submaximally training, and then those days where you're training 100%. So that's a brief overview of that point. Now, the last one is no technique intention. This is huge in the planche. there's more and more people that I see on social media or when I go to the park, they just send the full planche. There's no real intention behind it. They think that the more they just attempt, one day they will get the full planche. And they don't really have a real understanding behind it, so they don't understand the protraction, external rotation, the grip, the hip and glute engagement. You need to actually engage your legs. As much as we hate to say that we never train legs, the legs are a huge part of the planche. So as they think that as long as you just attempt without real understanding and no intention behind the attempt, then one day you'll get it. But this again just delays your skill acquisition, because the people that attempt but put intention behind the attempt is going to be a little bit complicated, is going to progress faster. Because even though, for example, you attempt a full planche, but your protraction isn't perfect, as long as you're intentionally trying to protract, over time it will get better. Instead of the person that has no protraction but doesn't put the intention behind fixing it. So then it becomes a bad habit. So that's really important. You don't want to create these bad habits. You want to always be conscious and put this intention to fixing the incorrect engagement so that it becomes one day a correct engagement. And that's when where you see people going from bad form to really good form, because they have this intention, instead of the people that stay stuck with zero protraction over years, months, or however long it is. And then they just never seem to be able to get out of it. So again, super important to keep this intention. It's really, really important. So that's the main things over why most people plateau. And let's move to the actual weekly system. So when it comes to the system behind learning the planche or even any other skill, is that you need to learn how to progress in a neural way, so neural adaptation, as well as a physical strength way. So this system that I'm about to explain to you, they balance both. So again, this system balances both and applies every progression. So it doesn't matter what level you are, you can be learning the planche, being at tuck planche, advanced, full, it doesn't matter. This system applies to everything. There's 3 types of days. So there's your 100% day here. So this is usually done only once or twice per week to test your actual limits. So for example, if you're on a tuck planche, on these days you want to be pushing and attempting your advanced tuck planche. So testing your limits and see exactly where you're at with the next progression. And then the 60% days, so this is your main workout. So this is the one you'll be doing 2 to 3 times per week. And this is just to build effective volume, safe volume, because the important thing to know about calisthenics is that the more you expose your body to a certain movement pattern, the better it's able to adapt on a neural level. Your body is more efficient at creating new neural pathways to be able to then efficiently carry out the planche. But you also need to be careful, because if you do it too much and with too much intensity all the time, then you create burnouts and then it leads to injuries. And injuries is the single thing that we want to avoid. Health is wealth. If you're injured, you can't do anything and everything stops. So the most you can prevent this from happening, the better. So that's exactly what the 60% days are for. Now the third one, these are your rest days. So what are rest days for? There's actually 2 types of rest days. There's your active rest day as well as your full rest day. So this is going to be happening once or twice, maybe 3 times if you need it per week. And this is exactly where the recovery and adaptation happens. Because in your 100% days and 60% days, you put your body through stress. So you're doing your exercise, your body is now under a stress amount of load to be able to carry out those exercises. And those rest days is where you recover and you actually build the strength as well as build the adaptation to the stress that you've put your body under in the 100% as well as 60% days. So this is super crucial. It's just impossible to keep progressing over a long term if you don't put any rest days. So it's super, super important. Please don't fall in the trap of no pain, no gain mentality and thinking you need to train every single day. Rest days are just as important as your actual workout days. So that's the overall general feeling of what the system looks like. So if we move on, I'm going to go into more in depth about what the actual days look like. So first one is your 100% day. So again, is there to test your limits, push your nervous system to adapt and keep maximal attempts to 2 or 3 sets. More than that delays your recovery. So if you keep spamming attempts, for example, like 8 sets of attempts, there's no point. because after 2 or 3, you're going to be so dead because you're pushing at 100% for that next progression that you're just going to fry yourself out on a physical as well as neural level. So just keep it at 2 to 3 sets, and this is more than enough, trust me. Now, how does this day actually work? You first start off with your warm-up. Everyone has a different warm-up. Just spend 5 to 10 minutes to prime yourself on a nervous as well as physical level before going to your skill attempts. Now, your skill attempts. There's 2 ways to go about this. The first one is to attempt the next progression. So, for example, if you're in a tuck, you progress the advanced tuck. If you're in advanced tuck, you progress the straddle or single leg, and then so on until you get to the full planche. But this is only good when you've already kind of mastered your previous progression. So if you have around 8 seconds of the tuck, that's when you go on and you move to the next progression. So that's when you want to be attempting your advanced tuck. However, if you haven't got this 8 seconds of tuck, you want to be attempting a higher amount of seconds, so a higher amount of time of that progression. So if you only have about 2 to 3 seconds of tuck planche or advanced tuck or whatever progression you're at, you want to be aiming for maybe 4 to 5 seconds. And then you keep attempting until the day you get 8 seconds of clean hold of that progression. And that's when you know you want to move on to the next. But again, we're going to be explaining that later on in the video of when to move on and when you're ready for the next progression. Now, the next block here is your volume and accessory block. This is when you want to be doing 2-3 sets each of your specific volume exercise. Sorry about that. My mind went blank for a sec. So yeah, you want to be doing, for example, if you're doing planche, you want to be focusing on some planche presses as well as planche push-ups. And why you want to do this is because now you're building strength, but in a dynamic range of motion. So now you're applying force in every single angle possible so that the skill attempts, your actual holds become so much easier because you're building that raw strength within the volume and accessory block. So for example, for me, what I usually do is I do 2 sets of max press and then 2 sets of max push-ups, or even 2 sets of max hold to press, just to get more volume and effective volume within my training. And once that is done, so that should be around 4 total volume sets, you want to be moving on to your accessory. An accessory is stuff like your pseudo planche push-ups, your leans, and this just allows you to condition your body, condition your ligaments, condition your joints, and most importantly, you work on your weaknesses. So for example, like in the previous slide where we were talking about the intention, this is the block of the workout where you want to be working on those intentions. So if your protraction is bad, in the leans during your accessory work, you put even more emphasis and focus into your protraction. So again, this also could be banded work, so a heavy band, but not too heavy to the point where it's pointless, and not too light where you're still struggling to actually be able to engage the correct activations. So that's a bit more about the accessory block. So in total, you'd have around, I would say, 8 to 10 sets in this workout. And just an important note, you have your rest in between. So in between your sets, I would recommend between 3 to 8 minutes. And this is because in your skill attempts as well as volume, your body is using a system called ATP-PC, so for recovery. So ATP is basically the energy currency of your body. And every time you have a short burst, around 30 seconds and less of effort, your body is using this system. And to be able to replenish the system, you then have to, it usually happens in the span of 3 to 8 minutes. So don't worry about going over the 3 minutes or even 5 minutes to be able to recover, so that you can put the exact same effort and amount of intention into your next sets. The worst thing is that you under recover, your rest periods are too low, and then your next set then becomes pointless because you're just completely off. So that's the 100% days. Now, how do you know if you're actually ready for 100% days? So how do you know when to take those 1 to 2 sessions a week? So first and most important thing here is to listen to your body, because some weeks you might not even get your 100% day. You can get one, and that's also perfectly fine, because your consistency matters more than like trying to cram it into your week. For example, some people, such as myself when I was working in the kitchen, and what I'm doing now to be able to make content and coaching with my clients and provide value for you guys on social media, sometimes it's really difficult to find a day where you're feeling super fresh and you have the time to be able to get this 100% day in. So some weeks you'll have one, some weeks you might not have any, and this is completely fine. You need to be able to have that day where you're able to fully focus on this 100% day, because it's going to be super stressful on your body and you want to have full focus on that session. So that's something really important to note. And these are some other things when you would skip a 100% day. So when you're still fatigued or sore from the previous session, this is something that's obvious. If you're fatigued or you're like physically sore, there's no point in pushing 100%, because you won't even be able to output that amount of effort if you're still fatigued. Now, another one for the busy professionals, because this is something really important to take into consideration, especially something that I learned when I was working in the kitchens over 65 plus hours a week. When your work stress is extremely high, or when you know you have a day where you're going to be working a lot, that's when you want to avoid the 100% days, because this work stress is going to be draining your energy, especially on a nervous level, to the point where you won't be able to have an effective 100% day. So this, again, important to note. Another one is poor sleep. If you have a poor night of sleep, you get maybe 3-4 hours of sleep, because again, life is unpredictable. You don't have that perfect amount of sleep every single night. And that's something also to note. And if you feel, again, fatigued because of this, then you want to avoid the 100% days. And that, again, if you do have fatigue, your body is going to feel heavy, and also mind is going to be disconnected to your muscles and your nervous system. So that's, again, no point in training for 100% day, because it won't be effective. So again, and another one, the principle for busy professionals, like I already said, your job already drains your central nervous system. So forcing a maximal session when you're not ready leads to burnout and not progress, and worse, injuries. So for those who are busy professionals such as myself, please do take into consideration and note that your job and your busy lifestyle is affecting your trainings a lot more than you think. Working a job and training calisthenics is a completely different game to just training calisthenics and having all the time in the world, because you're not actually working. So again, super important to know. Now, let's move on to the 60% days, so your submaximal days. So this is where most of your progress will actually come from, in my opinion. Because again, you're not pushing at 100%. This is where you're building safe and effective volume throughout your week. So you're exposing your body to the certain movement patterns that are required for the planche. So you're exposing your nervous system to movement patterns through repeated controlled volume. Again, repeated and controlled and safe, if you do stay true to the 60%. So for example, if 100% is you do your tuck planche and you really like at the end of the set, you're completely like dead and you need that 8 minutes of rest, that's when you know you're pushing to your limits. So then you want to reduce that to 60%, so you can calculate it. You can go based off feeling. Feeling takes a bit more time. You actually need the experience to gauge, because then you need to know how your body will react. But overall, you want to be going submaximally. So the moment where you feel like you're about to go into that strain, you stop the set. And that's the hardest part, to be able to stop the set, because it's easy to keep pushing and pushing, but that restraint, that mindset to stop the set is actually the most difficult part. So this, again, not chasing your limit. And overall, this is what your structure is going to look like. So I'll go into the optional in a second. So again, 5 to 10 minutes on your warm-up. I just forgot to put the 10. Your volume work. So same thing as on the 100% day, but here you want to keep it submaximal. So you would do your presses. You would pick a progression where you're able to get a couple reps in without actual like burnout and you feel like you're pushing at 100%. So for me, for example, I would say if I can get 6 presses, and that would be my 100%, that would be my maximum, then I would turn it down to maybe 4 or 3, depending on how that 60% day feels, so that I know I'm under that 100% limit. So I'm always working submaximally, and same concept for the push-ups. So now into the accessory work. Again, you want to be doing your engagement. The accessory, same it's literally the same thing. Once you feel like you're about to go into that strain, you stop the set. There's nothing complicated about this. There's no like super secret like method about these days. It's just you need to be able to have that mental restraint and mental strength to actually stop your set on that submaximal level. And again, same thing, rest between your sets. Make sure you don't skip this, even if it's a submaximal day, because you might feel fine physically, but you need these 3 to 5 minutes to be able to recover your nervous system between each set. And again, for the busy professionals, when you do have these days, I recommend doing grease the groove when you don't have that block of time during your day. So it's just basically spreading out your sets throughout the day. So you can spread out, do 2 sets in the morning, 2 sets during the afternoon, and then when you come back from work and maybe around late evening, I would say, do your 2 to 3 light technique sets. So you're basically just breaking up the whole workout throughout your day. So it's actually possible, because the worst thing is that when you feel like you could work out and then you completely skip it, that's when you're reducing your volume, reducing your effective exposure to the movement patterns, and then it's just going to slow down your progress. So that's basically the summary of what the 60% day looks like. Again, nothing complicated. It's just that mental strength to be able to turn down the intensity and stop your sets at a submaximal level. So yeah. Now, I want to also go over the psychology of the 60% days, because again, for me, the hardest part, in my opinion, is that mental strength to stop. So the biggest thing that I hear is, if I don't feel exhausted, I didn't work. So if you don't feel physically exhausted at the end of the workout, you feel like you're not making progress and you need to be pushing harder. This is completely wrong. Let me tell you that now. I've went through that. I had that no pain, no gain mentality, and it always led me to wrist injuries, elbow injuries, shoulder injuries. I even broke my ankle at one point. I was out for 45 days. I couldn't do anything. Yeah, 4 screws in my ankle, about 21 stitches, and it was just not good. And through that and through those experiences, I've now learned the importance of the 60% days and how important it is on a physical but also mental level. So you should be feeling fine. Maybe not completely fresh, but to the point where you feel like you could be pushing more, but you have restrained yourself to the point where you can work out again the next day. Because the aim is to be able to do it as many times throughout the week. So if you keep doing 100% day and you need 2 to 3 days to recover, then you're missing out on 2 to 3 days of the week and it's already gone, and you'll only be able to work out like once, two times, 3 times a week. And that's not enough when it comes to calisthenics and really benefiting from this central nervous system exposure. So second thing is your neural pathways come first. Most people think that they plateau because of a strength issue, but when in fact is actually a nervous system issue, because you're not allowing your body to adapt correctly to the movement patterns and to the planche. So something super important, and that's why the 60% days are there. So you don't fry your central nervous system every time you work out. Now, there's a little bit of a thing here. So basically this little paragraph here is basically a really brief overview of the results of a study that showed how much more important the neural side and proprioception is within a sport that requires skill-based skills, so such as gymnastics, even maybe like I think it was swimming, calisthenics, just basically sports that require body weight training. So skill-focused trainees show significantly better body awareness than strength-only athletes. And strength-only athletes, we refer to the people that just go to the gym, push hard, and then expect the results, even when they have this equal physical strength. So you might be the same physical strength, but the fact that you have that neural adaptation, you're going to be performing better. So that's the importance there is. A 34% increase. That's actually pretty crazy if you think about it. So last days, so the rest days, and then we'll be going over the weekly layout, which is over here. So the rest days, the active rest day specifically, isn't about doing absolutely nothing. You want to still be moving, because sometimes doing nothing is actually worse for your recovery than doing something. So, but this is important. Staying at, I would say, 10 to 20% effort. That's what worked best for me and for my clients, with zero systemic stress. And that's exactly where your adaptation consolidates. Because on your rest day, for example, if you keep moving, your muscles, they need blood flow to recover. And your tendons get less blood flow than your muscles. So if you move slightly, you do a bit of active activity, so you go walking, you do some light mobility, handstands. So this is a specific skill that requires more like balance and technique rather than strength. That's a perfect skill to be able to work on your active rest days, and even some light conditioning. This allows you to actually move your body, get increased blood flow on a non-systemic stressful way, so that you're able to boost your recovery. You boost the amount of nutrients that go to your muscles as well as your joints, so therefore your recovery is better and you can work out more times during the week with a better energy within your body. So this always leaves at least 1 day between your 100% session. So you want to be doing this at least one time between the times you do your 100% session, which is going to be more clear here. So this is a sample. The beauty about this system is that you can adapt it as you want. So for example, if Monday you have a big busy day, you can switch it out and then shift everything across that's specific to your lifestyle. So that's something that you need to do on your own and figure out what works best for you. So as a sample, you want to be doing your 60% day and then your 100% day. That was a bit of a mix-up. So your maximal day is your 100 and submaximal is your 60%. And notice how the 60% are before the 100. Your 60% day is also there to be able to prime your body for the 100% day. Because if you go from 0 to 100, it's like starting a car and revving it at maximum amounts when it's cold. You want the engine to allow to warm up. So it's the same concept here. And then after your 100%, if you've truly done your 100%, you need the rest, because you can't expect yourself to be doing it over and over again in a row. So that's when you do your light active rest day or a full rest day, and then you repeat the cycle. But again, if you do need to take two 60% days in a row, then please do so, because some weeks you won't even be able to do 100%. So it could look 60% rest, 60 rest, 60, and then you shift it depending on how the week looks, because again, it can't be the same every single week. It's always changing. Your life is always switching around. So that's something super important. And the beauty about this system is you can adapt to your lifestyle and not force your trainings into your lifestyle. So that's a brief overview. So that's exactly what I mean. Now, let's go into adapting specifically for the busy professionals, because as someone who is a busy professional and who has been working, again, 65 hours a week in the kitchen and trying to balance my calisthenics training at the same time, because I have a huge passion for this sport, these are the biggest things that I recommend and tip for you guys. So again, can't stress it enough, your job already depletes your central nervous system. You can't train the same way as someone with a flexible schedule, and that is okay. Don't force the 100% days. If your schedule doesn't allow it, it's better to stay consistent with some submaximal work than risking injury or even burnouts. This is something you really don't want to overlook. And then a method that is really, really beneficial when you don't have that block of time: spread your 60% workouts throughout the day. And the reason why it's not the 100% is that when you spread it out, it's because you don't have enough time. So you won't have those 5-10 minutes to properly warm up before each set. So if you're pushing at 100%, it's going to increase your risk of injury and also increase the risk of burnouts. So I only recommend when it's on a 60% day, so you keep submaximal and your body can actually go through the day with these sets. So morning, lunch, evening, multiple low stress exposures work better for your nervous system. And now a non-negotiable is your rest days, as well as just rest overall, such as your sleep. Because you're busy. This is exactly why you want to rest more than someone that isn't busy, because your body now needs to recover from work stress as well as calisthenic stress. So you're on a basically double shift. So you want to be able to really prioritize this, because rest is part of training. And again, it's not a luxury, because sometimes you won't even be able to rest properly. You only have those 3-4 hours during the night to sleep because you're so busy. So that is something you really need to look at, and also a big factor when it comes to shifting your specific days throughout the week to be able to build that system for you. So if you have a 60% day planned for the next day, but you only got 3 to 4 hours, don't hesitate to take the day off and just have an active recovery day, because you can shift it the next day. The goal isn't to force your training, it's to be able to be consistent on the long run. And that's the beauty about calisthenics, and most importantly, have fun. Be able to enjoy your trainings, because if you're not enjoying it, there's no point in doing it at all. Now, like I said in the start of the video, we're going to be going over the progression as well as mindset. So when do you need to progress? This point, 8 to 10 seconds hold. Consistently hit your current progression with good form between this rep range is when you know you need to be moving on to the next. So if you have a tuck hold around this area, that's when you move to your advanced tuck, and vice versa to the rest of the progressions. And again, no compensation. So no bent elbows, no arching back, no poor lower body engagement, all the engagements and bad form that are common when it comes to planche. So you need to be having a good form before even thinking about going to the next. Because most people, for example, you hit that straddle hold, but it's bad form, but you get really excited. So the only thing that's going through your mind is, now I need to go to the full. I need to push. It doesn't matter about form. Form, when used correctly, is good. Bad form, when used correctly, is also good. So bad form is mainly used in the volume blocks. Your skill attempts, your intent, your goal is to be able to hit the progression with good form. And then when it comes to volume, you have less worry about that, because the goal is raw strength and reaching for those extra reps, which is impossible to do if you're always focused on good form. So this is something super important to know. And then again, one level at a time. Don't skip progressions, small steps, compound over months. In the moment, in the weeks even, it might feel like you're going slow, but when you zoom out, you realize how much faster you're actually going rather than if you skip the steps. Because you're building that foundation, and then you can build as many layers on top as you want. Whereas if you skip the foundation, even though in the moment it's faster, there's going to be a point where this foundation is going to break and everything topples down, and that's when injuries and burnouts occur. So make sure you don't skip that foundation and you keep one level at a time. Now the mindset, quickly go over again. Smart structure beats raw intensity. So stop trying to always strive for more intense sessions, 100% every single time. Have that smart structure. Like we said in the previous slides, find a system and the cycle that works for your lifestyle. You don't have the same lifestyle as anyone else. No one is the same. So that's up to you to be able to create this system. Now, consistency over months beats intensity over days. So same thing. Adapt your training to your lifestyle, already mentioned to you, and enjoy the journey. Don't chase the results. There's a huge quote, and a really nice one that I go by, is the moment you chase butterflies is the moment they'll fly away. But if you spend the time to build a beautiful garden, then they will come to you. Same thing with calisthenics. The moment you chase the end results, you chase this progress, that's when it won't come to you, because you're going to start skipping steps. You're going to be going 2 levels at a time. Your form's going to be bad. Everything's going to be off the chart. There's going to be no structure to your thing. So that's where the progress is out the window. Whereas if you build the foundation, you put all of these tips into consideration, and all the ones in the start of the video, that's when it's going to come to you, because you built the foundation, you've built that beautiful garden, and then the progress will come to you. So again, progress on a planche isn't a sprint. The moment you chase it, you rush, then you plateau. Super important. Please don't overlook it. So now, how can you actually put this in the next 24 hours to be able to have an action plan? So if you're ready to break through your plateaus, implement this system and see where your progress goes. So you want to assess your current training. Again, sorry for these 2 formatting errors. So first, assess your current level. Identify how many maximal via submaximal sessions you can do, and during the week where your training is not unbalanced. So the moment it's unbalanced, that's when you're going wrong. So find that system that works for you, like we were talking about. Your lifestyle is different to everyone else. Then plan your first week. Once you've understood how your body reacts to these maximal and submaximal days, and you know exactly how your lifestyle works, then you can start planning. So again, structured intuition. Map out 1 to 2 maximal days, 2 to 3 submaximal days, and 1 to 2, maybe even 3, depending on how stressful your job is, with at least 1 rest day between each maximal session. This is super important. This plan will allow you to do that structured intuition that we were talking about. Then you want to set up your tracking. Log your sets, reps, hold times, and how you felt each day using a notebook or even your notes app, whatever works best for you, because then you know exactly the moment when you need to progress, because you've been tracking everything and you know exactly how you're progressing, your recovery times, how your body reacts to everything, and then it just makes the whole system even easier for you, because then this structure and intuition is easier, because now you have this data about yourself to go off of through your notes app. And then lastly, schedule your sessions. Block specific times for training and recovery. Treat them as non-negotiable appointments. So like your job, you want to be having those training blocks where you know you're going to be able to put that focus, and once you're in it, you're in it, you're taking it seriously. And same thing for your recovery. Make sure you, when it's possible, because of course you can't sometimes, make sure you treat recovery really importantly. So your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, just enjoying life in general, going outside, spend some time in the sun, have fun with friends, family, I don't know, whatever you find is good for that enjoyment, so that you can make your life nice and not just about your job and not just about calisthenics. Again, it's a lifestyle. It's a whole lifestyle. You can't just focus on one thing at a time, and you can't force things into your lifestyle. You need to be able to adapt. So whatever makes it enjoyable, please focus on that. Now that's the end of the presentation, and I thank you so much for staying up till now. I just wanted to say that there's no secret when it comes to calisthenics. This isn't the only way you can get your planche. This is just what worked for me, what I learned throughout my journey, and what got me to my 2-finger planche. However, I really do hope you did get some value out of this, and feel free to go check out my other videos on training as a busy professional. I also want to note that if you do want personalized coaching and you want me to guide you through your planche journey one-to-one, just DM me the word change on Instagram, or you can click the link in the caption below and book a call directly with me. But I just wanted to say that if you had to take one thing away from this video, it's this: adapt your training around your lifestyle instead of trying to force your lifestyle around your training. Other than that, I thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.